Good morning. Welcome to Design Healthy Environments. I am Alicia Ponce, founder and principal of AP Monarch, architects and sustainability consultants, where we design for your health, the planet's health, and everyone as a whole. Today, I am excited to be talking to Rada Deutscheva, and I see that she is on, so let me bring her on. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
It's an interesting start of the week here, Monday morning.
Yes, yes. Well,
Charged.
we're going to be talking about designing healthy environments, and I would like to say thank you for accepting our invitation and introduce you. So for those who are tuning in and will watch this later, today we are joined by Rada Deutscheva. She is the founding principal and head of design of Rada Architects for 25 plus years now, right, Rada?
Correct.
So a huge, I mean, you're my mentor, one of my mentors to be a female owned small business, in architecture. Truly you know those are career goals for me. But Rada Architects, Rada leads her firm as a proponent of healthy and functional and cost-effective design in hospitals and other large institutional buildings. And she has spoken about these topics and events and conferences like NeaCon and healthcare facilities. And today we will be focusing on healthcare and talking a little bit about other sectors as well. And a big congratulations to you, Rada, for being on Crane's 2020 Women in Design and Construction this year. So that's, yes, no,
Thank you very
congratulations.
much. All women in this profession deserve to be there one day filling the pages.
Yes,
All women
indeed.
architects.
Yes. I remember when we first met, and it was a little over a year ago, a year and a half ago, when we officially met, and you were giving this talk at the AIA for women-owned firms and small firms, and being equitable and looking for those opportunities, right? For prime opportunities as female-owned architects. And we were joined by lots of female-owned firms or female representatives by the public sector. And also pretty large firms were there too to listen in on what you had to say. And you had a great panel. So yeah, that's when we met. And ever since, we've been on this same mission.
It has been very encouraging that events like this did not just remain a talk and an occasional gathering, but they really generated quite a few other gatherings, and one such was with you and other women, where if I could just share with the audience, current and future, where we have jointly embraced a mission and a work plan how to really give women more prime opportunities, where not just be there to survive, but to equally show what we were taught in school, what we worked so hard for, what we learned. I am very confident we're getting there.
Yes, and we have you to thank for a lot of that advocacy work. And the way I think of it is we equally paid for our education. We equally took the exams. We equally studied. And so why not equally work and equally have these opportunities, right?
Absolutely, and using your precious minutes, but to say that there is something also else in the cooking, which you're aware, but I would like others to hear. Something that I have talked about and tried to encourage others around me to create all women's team for large public projects. All women's architects team is one start, and then if we can get consultants, that's a great another expansion of the idea. So all of this is underway. Just stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes me think about the Pritzker Award after how many years that there was finally a female duo team that won it, that was recognized for their architecture. So it's a big deal.
Yes.
Hmm. So today we are here to talk about some of your healthcare projects, and you will share your insights on the way you put it, recalibrating, where we have an opportunity to recalibrate in the design industry because, as we all know, we are going through a pandemic, and we feel that there is opportunity to really think about the way we design and be even more intentional, not even just in healthcare, because there are certain design strategies that you're supposed to do in healthcare, for germs and just to make it a little bit cleaner that you wouldn't normally do in commercial office. But we're here to talk about recalibration and what it is that you mean about that.
Well, you had also suggested that I introduce myself a little further with
Yes.
how I got to do such projects and kind of a little bit of a foundation of why I come up with certain statements and opinions. And had done so, I wrote actually a list for myself of these presentations: NeoCon, the Healthcare Symposium, the All Knowledge Community. Here, a good list of presentations regarding healthcare and design determinants, uh, where this question of recalibrating was really the question of calibrating at the time of something that we have all not only as architects but as public here witnessed the skyrocketing costs of healthcare in this country. Um, but back a little bit about sharing my background.
Mm-hmm.
And as an architect, I think I was shaped by several main points in my education and life as an architect. My thinking is really influenced by the European university I attended in architecture. And the treatment of the architect there, which to this very day I keep reminding, for good or for bad, sometimes maybe in client settings, sounds like news, but architects there were trained and continue to be perceived as more as generalists than specialists. Um, the architect has been perceived as being able to resolve any issue, knowing the methodologies and the basic technical and planning knowledge, and
Mm-hmm.
also having this magic of assembling teams and conducting teams toward a final solution. So it's a glorious role, but it's also a big burden on us. But it does allow society somehow to take the advantage and the most benefit out of the architect. So this has really shaped my thinking, and this also has opened my eyes and ambitions to do a variety of projects. So as RADA and as RADA architects, I have dipped not only in healthcare quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit more. My beginning as an architect was in healthcare, both in Europe and in this country, but also in airport work, in higher education work, in commercial, in residential. So I've continued to think, practice it, and apply these principles of being the architect problem solver, an architect guiding the client and the team of specialists.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that has shaped me somehow is this learning in healthcare planning and design, which is very serious, where I came from, my original background in Bulgaria. It is an exercise of logical thinking, of research, of rational, functional designs, which, very interesting, can be applied to other projects. So once you've done these projects, you really are doing
Right.
very good planning all across your work. Being able to travel on West European research of West European hospitals opened my eyes at the time for what Germany was doing, what Austria was doing, what France, what England was doing. Totally different systems of socialized healthcare.
Mm.
Um, Another big shaping of mine as an architect was coming to the United States, and really I came with my healthcare background, PhD in healthcare, and experience to do such projects, which had a few doors open. Um, the practicality here and the immediacy of doing things really also brought this theoretical, strong theoretical background into action, into this immediacy of doing things in this country and getting them done, building them, getting them
Mm.
done onto the next one. And finally, I mean, there are a lot of things that shape someone in their lives, but
Yes.
professionally, um, going back to school here for an MBA at University of Chicago was another drilling of thinking economics, of thinking
Mm-hmm.
about the dollar, of thinking about how all of it comes together. And although
Right.
it's one of the more conservative schools, mildly said, compared to the East Coast, there is learning there. There is thinking about the big picture, the world, the macroeconomics, the microeconomics, all of this, which translates into an architect's work.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's incredible because I mean, as architects, we don't have training in business, and it's so important to what we do to understand that and to make it so a cohesive, to give the client a smart, beautiful, and cohesive, solution, right? And so that's one of the things that, if we can have something and added to the schooling, it would be some type of understanding, a basic level of understanding of the business side and economic side of it.
This is actually one of my ideas for your planned end of where we could go from there. And I'll get to mention, I really like what you said, as I feel that we can get a lot more out of our projects. And I'm going to talk mostly about healthcare today. But as they are huge endeavors of huge teams, it will really be helpful if we have more educated people around the table in the field of how architects work and what the economics are. Um, should I talk about why I think recalibration is a good subject?
Yes, I think it's very relevant right now. Everybody is I'd like to hear what recalibrate means to you because there's also terms like pivoting, adapting, flexibility, and but I like how you described it, how we have to recalibrate and, to me it seems like more of the engineering part of it, really getting to the technical pieces of architecture. So if you share your insight on that.
Well, thank you for catching on to this suggestion as I gave you several. Um, there is always going to be a good amount of products and materials out there. They're already starting. We're still in a lockdown and hiding from the virus. There'll be a lot of this around us, and I personally have no worries that we'll have the best cleaning supplies and the best antimicrobial finishes. So I think that products development in this country moves much faster and is way ahead of thinking conceptually. This refers to healthcare. And why am I talking about recalibrating? Because what we've had so far, in many ways, just doesn't sound good. And in this time of reset, it gives
Mhm.
this opportunity, this huge reason, this pause in our lives and reevaluation, what it is that we can do and what it is that we can do in the healthcare design field, conceptual planning, And this also touches the lives and the powers that our clients have as to how to deal with these projects.
Mhm.
So why should we talk more about it? I think the first big reason is that healthcare cost and healthcare design and construction is quite exorbitant in this country. As I was looking through notes here these days, I was reminded a magazine author, an article author mentioned that the healthcare system in this country, taken as a GDP compared to GDPs of other countries, if just taken out of our GDP,
Mhm.
will be the fifth largest economy in the world.
Mhm. Wow.
What this also means is that small changes, even in this huge economy of scale, can make a big difference of what the outcomes are for patients, what the work environment for the biggest US workforces is. Turns out there was statistics 2 years ago that US healthcare has become the biggest employer in the country. So changes in the workplace environment, changes in the environment. Alicia, you are really an expert there to comment on how buildings construction, capital investment in construction and their operation, how it may affect carbon footprint, carbon dioxide emissions, environmental impact. So the bigger we are, the more consuming we are, the more we are affecting the world because we are the fifth largest economy, just the healthcare in this country. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, I mean, we have to be, and I'd like to say hi to a couple of people who have joined in. We have Iana K. Kolev. We have Ella's virtual assistant. Hello, good morning, and ICN underscore ORD. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We have Conectando Corazones, Connecting Hearts. And we have Ponce Isela. That's my sister. So hello, good morning. Thank you for joining.
Hello.
um, I think that, you know, what green building does in sustainability and what it is doing is the act of transparency also in what we do and holding the project teams, manufacturers accountable of how we are building, how we are specifying. And as architects, we have the responsibility to be very intentional, uh, to provide, you know, a building, a space, an end product to our clients that's comforting, that meets all of those needs, right? You know, what you started talking about with, you know, does it go align with the capital budget? Is it what the client wants in terms of goals and how it feels? Is it right for our climate, right? Are we holding manufacturers accountable with what they put in their ingredients? Is it healthy for us? What is it that we're breathing in? So there's a lot that we do as architects. We research and we investigate, and you bring us another layer that I am willing to say that not many architects do. You know, think about, you know, that economy of scale, right? Just on such a focused level. I mean, I think about it too as well, but obviously I don't have an MBA, but it's something that, you know, as architects, we look for other experts. You know, that's what green design does, is it brings experts, specialists. It brings us together in a transparent and integrated group. So that's what I think. And, you know, as far as recalibration, and I'd like to hear what you're working on. Maybe you can talk about one or two projects. But, you know, since we're talking about healthcare, what I've been thinking is, do you think some of the design strategies will be merged in other sectors like like public spaces, commercial spaces, or, let's say a movie theater. The healthcare is a highly specialized, uh, environment where we have to think about antimicrobial um, surfaces, for example. Do you think that with the pandemic, do you see these design strategies and details that will merge?
Well, that goes back, it's a very good one. It goes back to what I mentioned, that once you've designed healthcare facilities with the logistics and rationality that is expected of you as an architect, a lot of this can translate into other building types. But I would like to go back more to the planning deficiencies that a lot of
Mhm.
designs these days show in
Right.
healthcare in this country. It's very dangerous to be summarizing everything in one bag, but that's the opportunity to do it. Um, and we can, most of us agree that a lot of new or remodeled buildings in healthcare have abundant corridors, more than they should, that they have beautiful lobbies, more than they should, but less of workable human environment for staff. And all of this together translates itself into cost again. If solutions are achieved with excessive corridors, if fixes are done through excessively good lobbies and public spaces that show well in photos, this is
Hmm.
already a symptom of a certain sick patients. There was an article about the hospitals in the United States being sick patients. How about that? Another fact which was striking, again, I went back to my notes from a talk I gave at the Healthcare Facilities Symposium and Expo last year in Boston. Um, about 100,000 people die of infections every
Uh,
year in the United States, and this is before the virus. This is inner hospital infections.
wow.
So knowing that our ability to use antibiotics and all kinds of very good products, the best of the best in this country, all of this points to poor planning, points to the lack of architectural barriers to protect patient safety against infections. So there is a need for some sound planning to step in here in the architectural profession to bring back these principles that were so important years ago, and they were actually, some of these principles made it into some great projects, both in this country, in
Mhm.
Canada. I want to mention, if we have time, Eberhard Zeidler and McMaster in Hamilton, Ontario, a seminal project there. So these principles seem to get lost, and they translate itself into excessive construction, excessive design cost, inner hospital infections, poor work environment. So this is what we need to change. Now, you asked me about projects. Should I move to this topic, a little bit of
Mhm.
recent work? I mean, your question is, as you formulated it, was before, during, and after.
You can pick one. It's a lengthy topic. We could talk about this all month.
I know, and this after is also going to be interesting. But leaving behind some of these mega projects that I was so lucky to be involved in the past, that deal with big master planning of hospitals and the big pieces, the big Legos, which I am the proponent of being right about putting your Legos together in
Uh-huh.
hospital planning correctly. Not just any Legos, but putting them in the way
Oh,
they
of
should be,
course.
right? Not with these extensive corridors and palaces of corridors. But as RADA architects, we have had projects that have, each one of them has brought something both for client, for us, that is worth talking about. Um, just in the last couple of years, we did a series of heart rhythm centers in different university hospitals. One was in Toledo, ProMedica. This was talked about in several conferences and written in magazines. Not just for nice marketing material, but how we really can bring a humanized environment within such a high-tech, inside the hospital, no window facility. Very good question. How do you brand? How do you not only brand spaces for staff to be able to work easily, not in every hybrid room to go in and put the supplies in a different place. They have to think every time. Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency.
Right.
Very important. Uh, Projects that caught us in the middle of the COVID-19, one of them is for Rush Hospital, cell therapy lab, which we're doing, moving toward using modular clean rooms and modular parts of this project. They made me think again as to how important it is to bring back the conversation about modular construction in hospitals and standardizing hospital layouts of certain areas, not just components, and what the real big question is, what it is that's really can subject itself to standardization. Everything we can repeat well and put our design efforts into the public spaces or lounges, that would be better. But we work too hard of each and every little corner of these huge facilities to plan them, to make them work. So standardization may be one thing of the future to think about recalibration.
Yeah, I have a question, and it came up, and it's going to come up, I think, next week. We have Victoria Navarro with Advocate Healthcare, and she mentioned something about the waiting room, and I want to ask your opinion. And is this because of, the pandemic and the checking into your doctor, to doctor's visits? They've changed the way you check in. You wait. You when you're ready, they'll send you a text message, and this is kind of like what you're saying, reducing the corridors, the lobbies, and everything. And she was talking specifically about waiting rooms. Do you think like waiting rooms will go away? And how are we going to be doing? What's your take on it? And I have somebody here, Ella's virtual assistant. She says, I work at Rush.
Oh, great. You got the right people around the table.
Yeah.
It's a very good choice to have Victoria, and I will make myself available to hear what she has to say next week. As a matter of fact, it was today, June 8th, when Victoria and I and Susan Stearns from Rush were going to present at NeoCon on design determinants and better design outcomes for patients and staff. So this is exactly the kind of people we want to hear what they have to say. Waiting rooms, I think it looks like waiting rooms could really be a thing of the past. And we had another seminar on the hospital maze, wayfinding by design. This was a couple of years ago. And this did deal exactly with these apps in a hospital, in an ambulatory care center, where they can guide you to the appointment. There is no waiting. It's all the apps and the technology these days, and waiting rooms very, very well might be a thing of the past and put our dollars elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. And as, somebody who works for Advocate, that, talking about capital, money, where are you going to put that? Where does it make sense to put those dollars? And so I'm so glad that you mentioned wayfinding, because it's something that I've been researching and looking at design strategies like biophilia and biomimicry into design, and really putting more intention into all of our senses, especially now, but more on, on smell and visual and sound as wayfinding tools for occupants. And now it's going to be less of tactile, but more of visual and comfort and all of that. I think in the design strategies, and that's what I'm looking at into to help guide occupants. Somebody walks in for the first time or somebody not familiar with the building. How are you going to intuitively guide that occupant into the space that they need to go to, right? And so I think wayfinding is going to be should have a higher importance. Not that it doesn't now, but even more so. And then technology. Technology is going to be a huge piece of it.
This is most likely one of the things that may very well stay after the virus. Now we were thinking of this method of wayfinding because of all of this danger still out there. But it's a great thing to stay uh, within our facilities for all of these reasons of efficiencies, of the patient experience, of bringing not just the time, saving the time and the trips, but also, as you said, added music and color. I think you mentioned color. And I know we talked about music at one of these neocon seminars.
Mm-hmm.
This can also distract a patient, a scared, worried, we all
Mm-hmm.
are, right, at some
Mm-hmm.
time, from where they're headed. So these are great ideas that are implementable.
Right. I mean, it's definitely, we need to think about the occupant, and we also definitely need to think about our client, right? And for me, it's making more intention on once we deliver a design that we know, it's like delivering a baby, right? Okay, here's the baby. No instructions, right? But there are plenty of books on how to take care of it, and how to care for it and how to maintain it for the rest of its life, for its life cycle. And so that's what we do, is also be very intentional about the life cycle of a building, whether the energy use is very important. Try to reduce that EUI, the energy use intensity, from the beginning. And then how do you maintain it? How do you operate it throughout its life? And it's all wrapped up under this topic of designing healthy environments. It's all interconnected.
And it will all start with us building more compact and efficient healthcare facilities. It's all going to start there. Then we're going to have to operate less, to manage less. And the big question is how, and how this knowledge of functional and rational planning can take front stage in our community. Um, and I have a few suggestions and ideas, but before I go there, and I know you're watching the time, I hope, I would like to talk also about another aspect that requires recalibrating, and it's the aspect of adaptability and flexibility.
Uh-huh.
These two things have been always associated with hospitals, these two notions of needing to be flexible, needing to be adaptable. But the recent pandemic also showed how little adaptable hospitals were and were conceived to be. How to do this has been, we've been maybe too comfortable, and also this country spends a lot of money on healthcare, so can afford to do things in an expensive way. But how is flexibility to be entered in the equation of design? How can you have interchangeable spaces or expansion without
Mm-hmm.
disrupting major fixed elements? This is all a subject matter that needs to be put on the table during design. And,
Right.
and also avoid the mechanical random adding of pieces, especially existing buildings, and we have a lot of existing buildings, right, that we add
Mm-hmm.
on to. Um, when designing them, there's always the thought of how is this building going to expand necessary? Where would the next architect find a way, and what is likely to change? All of these are questions. They're missing from the discussions. They
Yeah.
are indeed.
Yeah, and that's why I go back to we have a responsibility to take that to our clients, and they would, when we have these discussions, they definitely appreciate it because they're thinking about function. They want to function, they want to operate, and they want to, whatever their model is, bring in the dollars, bring in the patients, the students, um, but it's our responsibility to bring this conversation to them. And when you talked about expanding, in a couple of weeks, we'll be talking to Rochelle Moreno, where we are working on the expandable house. It's a different type of sector, but because of this pandemic is what inspired her to say, let's do a prototype and see what the expandable house looks like, and we're calling it the living organism because we all we need to adapt and be flexible. So I'm excited for that one, and I want to mention this quote that I saw on your website, and I loved it. And I know your father is an architect, and a lot of what you do, you're very inspired by him, and influenced by him. And so you have on your website, it says, "We succeed and stay in the race because we are leaders. Our mission to change people's lives for the better is injected into our blood." And I think that is so true. This is why we have to love what we do, Rada, right?
Yes, yes, very nice. Let's repeat it more often. Thank you for reminding me what's on our website.
Yes.
um, just mentioning, you mentioned my dad, and I will tell him that he will be extremely happy. He was just written up in the major Bulgarian architecture magazine for his 95 plus one birthday. He was one of the first doctors in philosophy architects in Bulgaria. Uh, and his dissertation was brought to light the issues of how design can influence the economics. And this was early on. So this ties in what I was saying, what has shaped me, and what is so important is hospitals are more difficult to do, more require more, have more needs, and how we design them, what functional planning principles we apply about flows, separation of flows, repetitive movements, shortness of these repetitive movements. All of these, there's like an A, B, and C of this planning that is amazing how it influences the dollars.
I need to read that.
Wow, that's 50 years ago,
It's
but
so
it's still
it's
true.
applicable. Yeah, it's applicable,
Right.
relevant today. So, which I also saw that you have interesting architectural debates at home.
Yes, we do indeed. As you mentioned reading, you read a lot. I really like to be with people like you who I can learn from. I just came across also a suggestion by one of the developers of healthcare cancer centers. Apparently an innovative company that just I looked at them, and he was suggesting that future pandemics like this that can be expected could possibly have creative solutions such as, so listen to this one, having hotels have federal subsidies to create rooms with ready headboards and ready modules to add to the mechanical
Oh,
ventilation system. So should this happen, you have your next layer of spaces you can tap into quickly. But in the meantime, they're not just sitting mothballed.
yeah.
I thought this was so creative. These are the
Uh-huh.
things that now in this recalibrating time, we need more of them. Not all of them may be workable,
Hmm.
but somewhere something new will come out. Um, there's one more thing, if you allow me, that
Oh,
I
yeah,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
say, as I see we have a few minutes. I recently met with friends from the office of Andre Duany Platter-Zyberg in Florida.
Hmm.
And this is Galina Tachieva. They are leaders in new urbanism. She teaches at Harvard sometimes, herself a Harvard graduate. They're the people who have tried to foster around the country the revival of vitality of mixed-use development. And if I recall, it was Andre Douany who first went to New Orleans after Katrina. So this is one firm known for their work. And I recently found out that they're now hired by hospitals. They have several clients on the West Coast for master planning a town center within the hospital, within the hospital complex. So this is one other idea for recalibrating. How much can we deinstitutionalize these facilities and sharing the costs and create also more of an environment that is less threatening?
Right.
That can give more functions, more use, more pedestrian life in the city. Like I live close to Northwestern Hospital, and there is a little bit of a seed of this mixed use new urbanism that they're doing with their restaurants and all of what's going on there, in spite of the grandiose atrium lobby that's underutilized. That's goes back to talking about the glamorous atriums and hallways.
Yeah, we have to go beyond the furniture with leaves on it, right? Or carpet with leaves or whatever. But it reminds me
where nobody's in them, but there's a few chairs in the corners for people to sit.
Yes, and
a culture pavilion, yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of something that I saw a couple of years ago for dementia patients, Alzheimer and dementia patients. I forget where it is. Maybe it was in Denmark, where they did design a village. It was a healthcare village so that the patients could come out, and not wander off and get lost. But they would be outside. They had shops. It was a small village, and I thought it just makes so much sense, so much, respectable and honorable and way to design for patients.
Very good example. Ties into what I said. I know you have just a couple of minutes, and if you give me maybe another minute to just summarize some of the suggestions.
No, yeah, of course, go ahead.
Of how to is, in this country, we have to know the how to, not just to criticize and make comments, but how to change. And I believe that we need some task force, and it does not need to be of people narrowly specialized that just done programs of healthcare designs, but a broader group that could create a new handbook, a new manifesto, so to speak, that will highlight these basic fundamental principles that architects should apply in various parts of a hospital complex. It's like a template to use that it doesn't exist, where we could find standardized solutions of different hospital departments. We may not apply them verbatim, but this becomes like a handbook, a tool of teaching a generation of people. Why not teach more? I know that we have a few colleagues. Sheila Kahneman teaches in Champaign, I think, healthcare planning. More of these programs for architects throughout, and conversely, doctors' electives where they can hear how architects work. My dad was teaching, he was also a professor in Bulgaria. He was teaching doctors architecture. Guess what? When he was going for the projects later in the later years to their hospitals to do, they would recognize him and be able to talk with him about why are we doing this? And with this, I will end to say that your comment about us leading is going to be a major component in the future for this to happen, as we need to be put back in a leading position more so than ever.
Yes. That's our responsibility. I think that the profession has that responsibility in the built environment. So I'm so happy to hear about everything that we talked about, and when you were talking about your father and talking to the doctors, so he was doing well. He's a well accredited way back before well certification, because now that's what it's about. You talk to the medical experts and how an environment impacts design and vice versa. So again, thank you so much, Radha, in joining us for designing healthy environments. And it's really great to see you. I haven't seen you in 3 months or so and counting. And but I'm so glad to be on the same mission as you to, elevate women and small businesses and architecture. And, like I said, right, we studied the same, we paid the same, and
Right.
we worked the same. And,
We
and
will.
so,
We'll get there. But thank you. What you're doing is big. Thank you. And I'll try to make the rest of the talks you have.
yes, well, we have Victoria Navarro next week, and that'll be a good one. Yes,
Great.
and I have one last comment here by Ming Garcen. What a lovely and equitably centered conversation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. This made my day.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Talk soon. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.